Tonight we are discussing Hackamania, Day 2, specifically the comedy show, or what was in architectural terms called a comedy show. There are evenings of laughter, there are evenings of polite laughter, and then there are evenings so profoundly unclaimed by laughter that they begin to resemble something older, stranger, and faintly religious. This was one of those evenings. At some point, the event ceased to feel like stand-up and began to feel like a Buddhist prayer ritual conducted in a casino conference room by men who had mistaken stage time for destiny. Not in the obvious sense. There were no bells, no incense, no robes. Only microphones, old resentments, and a depth of silence so complete it began to take on spiritual properties. A new quiet was reached that night, not ordinary quiet. Not the crowd is waiting for the punchline quiet, something deeper, something more final, a quiet more profound than the blackness of space. The kind of silence that does not merely fill a room, but studies it. The kind of a silence that causes a man on stage to hear, perhaps for the first time in years, the shape of his own miscalculation. Exactly, that is the point. People did not so much attend the show as witness it. Each set unfolded like an advanced breathing exercise in disappointment. A joke would be released into the room. It would drift outward, then vanish completely, as if absorbed by a higher and less forgiving plane of existence. No laughter, no groans, not even heckling, just absorption. The audience had gone beyond rejection. They had entered meditation. This was no longer a comedy showcase. It was a collective inquiry into the true meaning of non-response. Somewhere around the middle of the evening, the room achieved a state rarely reached in entertainment. Not boredom, not contempt. Transcendence through non-participation. The entire audience seemed to arrive, silently and together at the same private understanding that they were no longer at a show, but inside a lesson about time, about decline, about the strange sound a career makes when it brushes against nostalgia and discovers that nostalgia has moved on. There was also, once again, some confusion over the event branding. It must be stated plainly that Hack to the Future was intended only as a clever little play on words, a slogan, a theme, a small nostalgic nudge for the exact demographic most likely to buy tickets to a gathering built from old radio residue, internet grievance, and the ceremonial reanimation of damaged media figures. It was not a literal advertised promise. The convention was not offering time travel. No portal was hidden behind the merch table. No wormhole was expected to open near the ballroom doors. And under no circumstances should attendees have interpreted the title to mean that purchasing admission would somehow transport them back to a vanished era when certain aging microphone men were younger, looser, or more broadly considered funny. That was never the offer. The conference could provide badges, drink tickets, carpet fatigue, and a front row seat to historical shrinkage. It could not provide a return to comedy's prior weather. And yet, judging by the room, some people may have arrived genuinely hoping for temporal relocation. Instead, they got the present, and the present sat heavily upon them. Wise, very wise. This is what made Day 2 so moving in its own grim way. It was not a triumph. It was not a train wreck. A train wreck has impact. This was more like a ceremonial lowering. An organized descent into the deepest available level of audience stillness. By the end of the night, the silence had matured into something almost elegant, a thick velvet hush, a contemplative dark. The sort of silence monks might envy if monks had ever been trapped at a casino comedy festival with 2 drink minimums and unresolved media trauma. And so Hackamania Day 2 will be remembered. Not for big laughs, not for killer sets, but for guiding a room full of people into a state of involuntary spiritual reflection through the sheer absence of comic ignition. A lesser show would have merely bombed. This one attained something, a stillness beyond failure, a hush beyond embarrassment, a meditative void into which jokes were offered like small dying candles. Also, when a comedy show starts feeling like a monastery, something has gone structurally wrong. That was the joke. Of course. Good night.